There is a precise moment when you become less than you used to be. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, daily, imperceptible doses. It's when you allow someone to take out all their anger on you and then act as if nothing happened. It's when you accept being second best in the life of someone you treat as a priority. It's when you let people interrupt you mid-sentence, as if your words aren't important enough to be heard. Small betrayals of your own worth that you commit against yourself every day. And the cruelest part is that you don't even realize it's happening. Because you were taught that being a good person means accepting anything, that loving someone means tolerating bad behavior. That being understanding means being a doormat. That's a lie. You have been conditioned to confuse self-respect with selfishness, healthy boundaries with emotional coldness, dignity with arrogance. And in this confusion, you have lost something fundamental, the ability to recognize when someone is stepping on your soul. When was the last time you said no to something that hurt you just to avoid conflict? When was the last time you pretended you didn't care when you clearly did? When was the last time you accepted being treated in a way you would never treat anyone else? You have become a hostage to your own kindness, a prisoner of your own tolerance, a victim of your own inability to defend who you are. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire on earth, but he knew that the most important power was not the power he wielded over others. It was the power he wielded over himself, the power to decide what he would accept and what he would reject, the power to choose how he wanted to be treated. And he wrote to himself every day, "Teach them how to treat you by how you treat yourself." Because people learn how to treat you by observing how you allow them to treat you. When you accept disrespect, you are teaching that disrespect is acceptable. When you tolerate neglect, you are communicating that you deserve neglect. You have become an unwitting teacher of how to mistreat you. And today that changes. Today you will discover the 6 behaviors you should never accept in your life again. 6 boundaries that, once established, will completely transform how people relate to you. Not through aggression, not through unnecessary conflict, but through something much more powerful, unshakable self-respect. Are you ready to stop teaching people to disrespect you and start teaching them how to value you? Because once you understand these Stoic principles, you will never again accept less than you deserve. In fact, you will discover that when you stop accepting crumbs of respect, people naturally begin to offer you banquets of consideration. The first behavior you must eliminate from your life forever will touch a wound you may not even know you have. Never again accept being used as an emotional dumping ground. You know what I'm talking about. That person who shows up in your life only when they're angry, frustrated, upset with the world. Who dumps all the emotional poison they've accumulated during the day on you. Who uses your presence as a dumping ground for all the toxic feelings they can't process on their own. And then they disappear. They go back to their normal life as if nothing happened, as if you were just a convenient container for someone else's emotional garbage. That's not friendship. That's not love. That's not affection. It's emotional parasitism. And you allow it because you've been conditioned to believe that being available for other people's suffering makes you a good person. That absorbing other people's toxicity is a way of helping. That being a dumping ground for other people's frustrations is a sign of loyalty. But here's the truth that no one tells you. When you allow someone to repeatedly dump their emotional garbage on you, you are not helping that person heal. You are teaching them not to take responsibility for their own emotional states. You become a facilitator of other people's emotional immaturity. Seneca faced this constantly in the Roman court. People only sought him out when they wanted to complain about some injustice, when they were angry about a political decision, when they needed someone to validate their outrage. And he discovered something revolutionary. You can have compassion for someone without becoming a repository for that person's problems. You can love someone without accepting to be used as an emotional outlet. Starting today, when someone comes to vent their unprocessed anger at you, you will say something simple and transformative. I see that you are upset. When you are ready to have a constructive conversation about it, I will be here. And then you will walk away, physically or emotionally, until the person learns that you are not available to be used as an emotional dumping ground. This will seem cruel at first, because you've been conditioned to believe that love means absorbing all of someone else's pain. But real love is teaching people to deal with their own emotions in a mature way. The second boundary is even more fundamental to your dignity. Never again accept being second best. This means not being available whenever someone else cancels other plans. Don't accept last-minute dates because someone's first choice didn't work out. Don't be the backup plan in the life of someone you treat as a priority. And it goes far beyond romantic relationships. It's about friendships where you're only remembered when it's convenient. It's about family members who only call when they need something. It's about colleagues who only seek you out when they have no better option. You need to understand something fundamental. The way people prioritize you in their lives is a direct reflection of how you prioritize yourself in your own life. When you're always available, when you always cancel your plans to accommodate others, when you always accept crumbs of attention as if they were banquets, you're communicating that your time and energy have no real value. Marcus Aurelius had thousands of people who wanted his attention every day. Politicians, merchants, citizens, soldiers, everyone thought their problems were the most important. Everyone wanted to be a priority on the emperor's agenda. But he understood something you need to understand. If you give everyone your attention is worthless to everyone. He chose carefully where to invest his energy, and that conscious selectivity made every moment of attention he gave infinitely more valuable. Starting today, you're going to do the same. You're going to become selective with your availability. You're going to stop being always available to those who treat you like a second option. This isn't about becoming unapproachable or cruel. It's about valuing your own time and energy enough to demand that others value it too. When someone calls you at the last minute because their other plans fell through, you will say, "Thanks for thinking of me, but I already have plans." Even if your plans are just to be with yourself. When someone only remembers you exist when they need something, you will start to be unavailable as often as that person shows genuine interest in you. The third behavior you should banish from your life will revolutionize how people communicate with you. Never again accept being constantly interrupted. Every time someone cuts you off mid-sentence, they are communicating that your words are not valuable enough to be heard through to the end, that their thoughts are more important than yours, that you exist to listen, not to be heard. And when you allow this to happen repeatedly, you are agreeing to this implicit hierarchy. You are accepting a lower position in the conversation. This is especially devastating because communication is one of the most fundamental ways of expressing who you are. When your words are constantly devalued, a part of your identity is systematically suppressed. Epictetus was a slave when he developed his philosophy on human dignity. He had no control over his body, his location, his circumstances. But he maintained absolute control over something no one could take away from him, the right to complete his own thoughts. And he discovered that when you defend your right to be heard, you are defending something much deeper, your right to exist as a thinking being. Starting today, when someone interrupts you, you're going to do something simple but powerful. You're going to stop talking, look directly at the person, and wait, in silence, until they realize they interrupted you and give you space to continue. If they don't notice, you're going to say calmly, "May I finish my thought?" And you're going to wait for an affirmative response before continuing. This will feel uncomfortable at first, because you have been conditioned to believe that insisting on being heard is rude, but real rudeness is interrupting someone repeatedly. You are simply restoring the balance of the conversation. And something fascinating will happen. People will start listening to you more attentively, because they will realize that you value your own words enough to defend them. But we're just scratching the surface. The next 3 behaviors you're going to eliminate from your life touch on even deeper wounds that have to do with how you see yourself and how you allow others to see you. We've arrived at the 4th behavior that must be banished from your existence, and this one will touch on a pain you may have been carrying for years. Never again accept being ignored after giving attention. You know this devastating pattern. You offer attention, affection, and emotional energy to someone. You listen to their problems, celebrate their victories, and are present for the important moments. And when you need the same energy back, when you want to share something or simply be seen, that person is simply not available. They don't respond to your messages as quickly as you respond to theirs. They don't show real interest when you talk about your life. They don't offer the same level of emotional presence that you consistently offer. You have become an emotional giver in a one-sided relationship. And the cruelest part is that you keep giving, hoping that at some point the reciprocity will appear, hoping that your emotional generosity will spark gratitude, hoping that your consistency will inspire consistency. But here's a painful truth. People who ignore you after receiving your attention are not going to magically start valuing you because you continue to be available. In fact, your constant availability teaches them that they can take you for granted. Seneca wrote letters to friends who rarely responded. He offered wisdom, support, and deep reflections, and he often received silence in return. He could have continued wasting emotional energy trying to force reciprocity, but he learned something revolutionary. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and perhaps the deepest application of this truth is, the best response to those who ignore you is to redirect your attention to those who truly value you. Starting today, you will create a simple but transformative rule. You will give attention in the same proportion that you receive it. No less, because that would be bitterness. No more, because that would be self-sabotage. When someone consistently fails to return the energy you invest, you will consciously reduce your investment. Not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Not to punish, but to preserve your energy for relationships that truly flow in both directions. The fifth boundary will revolutionize your relationship with emotional availability. Never again accept being called only when needed. This is perhaps the most painful of all patterns. Those people who disappear from your life for weeks, months, only to reappear when they are going through some crisis. Who show no genuine interest in you when things are going well in their lives, but expect you to be completely available when they need support. You have become an emotional emergency room. Sought only in emergencies, ignored in times of peace, and you allow it because you have been conditioned to believe that being unconditionally available to others makes you a special person, that being everyone's safe haven is a form of purpose, that having value only in times of crisis is better than having no value at all. But here's the devastating reality. Relationships that only exist when one party is in need are not relationships. They are emotional transactions disguised as human connection. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this constantly. Senators who only sought him out when they wanted political favors, generals who only showed loyalty when they needed resources, citizens who only remembered the emperor when they wanted something. And he developed a principle that completely changed how he related to others. Observe not only what people do when they need you, but how they behave when they don't. People who genuinely value you show interest in you regardless of whether you are going through a crisis. They celebrate your victories. They ask how you are even when they don't need anything. They invest in the relationship in times of peace, not just in times of war. Starting today, you will begin to notice these patterns, and when someone reappears in your life only when they need something, you will respond differently. Instead of being immediately available, you'll say, "I'm sorry you're going through this. Unfortunately, I can't help right now, but I hope everything works out." This will seem cruel, but you need to understand, healthy relationships are built on consistency, not convenience. And when you stop rewarding selfish behavior with immediate availability, you force people to reevaluate how they relate to you. We've come to the sixth and final behavior, the most subtle and perhaps the most destructive. Never again accept being pressured to explain your personal choices. Why don't you want to go? Why don't you like that? Why did you change your mind? Why don't you do what everyone else does? These seemingly innocent questions carry a devastating implicit message. Your choices must be approved by others to be valid. Your autonomy is subject to the judgment of others. You must justify your existence in order to have the right to live as you choose. And every time you explain yourself when you shouldn't, you are unconsciously giving away power over your own life to those who should not even have an opinion about your choices. Epictetus wrote something that should be engraved on the soul of every self-respecting person. No man is free unless he is master of himself. And being your own master includes the right to make choices without having to justify them to those who have no right to question them. From now on, when someone pressures you to explain choices that do not directly affect their life, you will respond with a simple and powerful phrase, "That was my choice." And you won't elaborate, you won't justify yourself, you won't try to convince them. Because you understand something fundamental. People who truly respect you don't demand explanations for choices that are yours to make. But there is something even deeper happening when you set these 6 boundaries. Something that goes beyond better relationships or more social respect. You are rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Now we come to the most crucial moment of this transformation. The moment when you realize that setting these 6 boundaries is not about changing other people. It's about regaining something you've lost over the years: respect for yourself. Because here's the most devastating truth of all. You only accept being disrespected because, on some deep level, you believe you deserve to be disrespected. You only allow others to treat you like a second option because you treat yourself like a second option in your own life. You only accept being interrupted because you don't believe your words have real value. You only tolerate being used as an emotional dumping ground because you don't see yourself as deserving of healthy interactions. The problem isn't other people. The problem is the broken relationship you've developed with yourself. Marcus Aurelius faced constant attempts at manipulation, disrespect, and belittlement throughout his reign. Corrupt senators tried to use him. Ambitious generals tried to control him. Rebellious citizens tried to destabilize him. But he had something that most people never develop: an unshakable conviction about his own worth. Not based on ego or arrogance, but on something much deeper: real knowledge of who he was and what he deserved. He wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And perhaps the most radical application of this truth is this: you have power over how you treat yourself, even when you have no power over how others treat you. And when you exercise that power consciously, when you treat yourself with real dignity, something miraculous happens. The world reorganizes itself around your self-respect. People who previously disrespected you begin to treat you better, not because you forced them to, but because you stopped accepting less than you deserve. Toxic relationships dissolve naturally because you are no longer available for toxicity. Genuine connections deepen because you are offering a more respectable version of yourself. When you stop being used as an emotional dumping ground, the people around you are forced to process their own emotions in a more mature way. When you stop accepting being second best, you automatically become more valuable in the eyes of those who really matter. When you stop allowing constant interruptions, your words gain weight and authority. When you stop being always available to those who ignore you, you become someone whose attention has real value. When you stop accepting being sought out only in crises, you force people to invest in the relationship in good times as well. And when you stop explaining yourself to those who have no right to question your choices, you reclaim your autonomy as a human being. But the most profound transformation happens within you. You discover that you are worth much more than you ever imagined, that you deserve relationships where you are treated with genuine consideration, that your emotional energy is too precious to be wasted on people who don't know how to value it. You discover that self-respect is not selfishness. It is emotional intelligence in its purest form. It is you recognizing that you can only give to others what you have in abundance within yourself. And when you respect yourself deeply, when you treat yourself with the dignity you have always deserved, you become a living example of how healthy relationships should work. Seneca spent years being attacked by political enemies who tried to destroy him through public humiliation, emotional manipulation, and social isolation. They expected him to react with desperation, to beg for mercy, to lower his dignity in exchange for acceptance. But Seneca did something his enemies didn't expect. He kept his dignity intact regardless of how others treated him. He refused to participate in games that required him to diminish himself. He chose to live by his own standards rather than adapt to the standards of people who didn't respect him. And in the end, it was his enemies who lost power. Because dignity maintained under pressure is one of the most magnetic forces there is. People naturally gravitate toward those who respect themselves because they subconsciously know they will be respected in return. When you set these 6 boundaries, when you stop accepting behavior that diminishes your dignity, you are not being difficult or demanding. You are being normal. You are demanding the basic level of respect that every human being deserves. And here's the final revelation that will change everything. You've always had the power to demand that respect. You've always had the right to set those boundaries. You've always deserved relationships where you are truly valued. The only thing standing in your way was fear. Fear of being rejected for having standards. Fear of being alone for not accepting anything. Fear of discovering that maybe you deserved much more than you were accepting. But now that you've experienced what it's like to treat yourself with real dignity, now that you know what it's like to have relationships based on mutual respect, there's no going back. You'll never be able to accept less than you deserve again. Because you've discovered something that most people spend a lifetime learning, that self-respect is the foundation of all genuine happiness. Remember how we started this conversation, with you accepting being used as an emotional dumping ground, being second choice, being interrupted, being ignored, being sought out only when convenient, being pressured to justify every personal choice. You had become less than you used to be, a diminished version of yourself who accepted crumbs of respect as if they were banquets of consideration. Now, look where you are. You've become someone who no longer accepts being treated like an emotional dumping ground, who is no longer available to be anyone's second choice, who no longer allows their words to be constantly devalued, who no longer wastes energy on those who only remember you exist when they need something. You have become someone who does not explain themselves to those who have no right to question their choices. Someone who understands that self-respect is not optional, it is fundamental. And here is the final revelation, the most liberating of all. This transformation did not happen because you learned to be more aggressive or confrontational. It happened because you finally learned to value yourself. For years you confused love with submission, kindness with doormat behavior, understanding with no boundaries. And in that confusion, you lost something fundamental, the notion that you deserve to be treated with dignity. But when you set those 6 boundaries, when you stopped accepting behavior that diminished your worth, something miraculous happened. You rediscovered who you really are when you're not trying to please everyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Teach them how to treat you by how you treat yourself." And that's exactly what you did. You stopped teaching people to disrespect you and started teaching them how to value you, not through words, but through actions, not through demands, but through example, not through conflict, but through dignity maintained under any circumstances. And people learned. Some resisted at first, tested your limits, tried to force you back to your old self, but you stood your ground, and they adapted. Other people, those who only knew how to relate through disrespect and manipulation, naturally drifted away. And that was a blessing in disguise. Because you discovered that it is better to be alone with dignity than accompanied without self-respect. And new people appeared, people who recognized your dignity and responded with dignity of their own. People who know how to value someone who values themselves. People who understood that healthy relationships are based on mutual respect, not tolerance of disrespect. Seneca said, "Every new beginning comes from the end of some other beginning." And maybe that's what really happened here. The end of the version of you that accepted anything. The beginning of the version that only accepts what it truly deserves. The end of the version that lived in fear of setting boundaries. The beginning of the version that understands that boundaries are self-love in action. The end of the version that was content with crumbs. The beginning of the version that only accepts feasts. And when you truly integrate that level of self-respect, when you feel it in your body and not just understand it intellectually, you become genuinely free. Free from the need for approval from people who don't respect you. Free from the fear of being alone, because you have standards. Free from the compulsion to accept anything to avoid conflict. You become someone who attracts healthy relationships because you offer a healthy relationship with yourself. Someone who is respected because they respect themselves. Someone who is valued because they value themselves. And here is the most powerful truth of all. You have always had this right. You have always deserved to be treated with dignity. You have always had the power to set healthy boundaries. The only thing missing was the courage to exercise that power. And if you've made it this far, if you've truly incorporated these 6 boundaries, then you know your life will never be the same again. You will never again accept being used as an emotional dumping ground. You will never again accept being second best. You will never again allow yourself to be constantly interrupted. You will never again waste energy on those who ignore you. You will never again be available just for the convenience of others. You will never again explain yourself to those who have no right to question your choices, because you have discovered something that most people take a lifetime to learn, that self-respect is the foundation of every life worth living. And when you respect yourself deeply, when you treat yourself with the dignity you've always deserved, the whole world conspires to treat you the same way. Like this video, if you've chosen to stop accepting less than you deserve and start living with the dignity that has always been yours by right. Comment if you're in the process of setting healthy boundaries and want to share your journey of self-respect. And share it with anyone you know who is wasting energy, accepting behaviors that diminish their value as a human being. Because the most powerful revolution that can happen is when someone finally decides they deserve to be treated with dignity. And if you've made it this far, that revolution has already begun.